Does your Toto or toilet with a Korky brand fill valve sound like this when it is filling up? Since the sound was a steady deep tone, it seemed that something was probably resonating in the fill valve as the tank was filling up. This is what I did to fix it. Start by turning off the shut-off valve, which should be just under the toilet tank. Next, take off the lid and place it somewhere safe. If you're putting it on a counter, then turn it upside down so the rough underside does not scratch your counter. Next, disconnect the refill tube from the valve. If possible, remove the transparent connector from the valve, as it will make valve disassembly much easier. Unfortunately, I couldn't remove the clear connector from the valve body, and instead had to disconnect the refill tube from the clear connector. Near the front of the valve cover, there is a slight lip. While holding the valve body with one hand, get your fingertip under the lip and gently pull towards you and up to unclip the cover. You may have to wiggle the cover quite a bit if the refill tube connector is still attached to the valve. Use your thumb and first finger to gently pinch together the arms of the float to unclip it from the valve body. Check the small round red seal on the underside of the float and replace it or turn it over if it is damaged. Ensure that it is seated flat on the float body and set the float body aside. Hold the valve body with one hand to prevent it from rotating, and turn the top of the valve about 1/4 of a turn anti-clockwise to remove it from the valve. Check the red seal on the underside, and if it is damaged, replace it, or the whole filler valve if you cannot get a replacement. If it is dirty, then gently clean it with warm water and some soap on a fingertip. Next, pull the tube out of the valve shaft. And then remove the white filter from the bottom of the tube. If it is dirty, then rinse it with water and then replace the filter. Use a dry cloth or paper towel to wipe the tube dry. Then apply some waterproof plumbing grease intended for faucets or valves, such as the Danco waterproof grease. You may want to take a clean dry paper towel and spread the grease up, down and around the circumference of the tube to make sure the whole surface is covered. I just laid a track of the grease down one side, then rotated the tube while reinserting it to spread it around. But I think it would be better to manually spread it on the tube before reassembly. If you didn't already remove the clear refill tube connector from the valve cap, doing it now will make it easier to reinstall the valve cover. Put the valve cap back on and hold the valve body with one hand while gently pressing down and turning the cap about 1/4 of a turn clockwise until it clicks into position. Carefully clip the float back onto the cap, lining up the slots in the float with the clips on the valve cap. Then check the float is correctly seated by ensuring it rocks up and down freely. Next, replace the valve cover. And now you can see why I recommended taking the refill tube connector off earlier in the video, because trying to replace the valve cover with it on still is very hard, and I ended up having to remove it anyway. Reattach the refill tube connector and then attach the refill tube. Turn the water supply back on and then flush the toilet to test that everything is working correctly. Replace the cover and you are done.